Hey guys, I want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in the Middle East. So, big news tonight. The U.S. targeted a base in Syria that America says is being used by Iran to launch attacks on American positions in Iraq. This story first started last week. I mean, this story has been going on for several years, but the latest chapter in this story was a U.S. position bombed last week in Iraq, believed to be bombed by Iranian-backed militia. One person died and several others were injured, including some Americans. So one of the things that's coming to light now is that it wasn't just this one American position in Iraq that was targeted, that apparently our embassy in Baghdad was also targeted. And so there was a series of events that were representing some aggression that America attributed to Iran. Okay, I know that's a lot to follow. Big picture, one of the things that you need to know is that the U.S. State Department has designated Iran a state sponsor of terrorism. That designation dates back to 1984. It has stayed designated a state sponsor of terrorism throughout Republican and Democrat administrations. What that means when the State Department does that is basically saying to a nation, you fund and support terrorist activities. There are only a handful of nations on this list: Cuba, Syria, North Korea, and Iran. Second thing to know, big picture, when we're talking about foreign policy and different strategies, they can all be reduced really to two basic options: the carrot or the stick. You already know this. We're either going to talk sweet or we're going to have a smackdown, or maybe a little bit of both. And what's interesting about this rocket attack in Syria by the United States is that the Biden administration has spent the entire last week since the rocket attack that targeted this American position in Iraq talking about wanting to engage Iran diplomatically and saying that we as a country want to return to the nuclear deal. We want to engage Iran. There's been a lot of back and forth on social media about this with some of the Iranian leadership, but it's been a lot of talk. And then I say sort of out of nowhere, but all of a sudden tonight we have the breaking news of America targeting this Iranian position in Syria. So you're seeing two different strategies. Which one's the right strategy? That's a great question. And you can see an administration can engage a lot of different strategies. And we've seen Republican and Democrat administrations over the last several decades attempt to engage Iran in different ways. Why do we care about Iran? Because as a terrorist state, which is what the United States is saying about the regime in Iran, that they're sponsoring terrorism and sponsoring terrorist activities around the world that are antithetical to the United States goal. We do not want them to gain access or develop a nuclear weapon. If they do, that poses a security threat to us here at home, changes the entire geopolitical dynamic, really, of the entire world. So those are the stakes. You know, people talk about foreign policy as incredibly complicated. It is complicated. Life is complicated. But the thing about foreign policy is that it's really personal, because what happens with our foreign policy decisions affects all of our families. So this is why I always have a special interest towards this topic.